So those of you who have done Operation Christmas Child a few times with us will know, as Gina said, I am fiercely competitive. So there is a church up the road who I spoke with, and they did 150 shoeboxes and just went, oh, how many do you do? And I couldn't remember, so I just said 200 plus. So no pressure, but we're going to need to get around 200 for me not to look like a liar. So about 200 would be awesome. There's boxes at the front. But for all of the joking and all of the competition, I don't want you to ever lose why Gina and why myself and why many others are so passionate about this opportunity. Because that's what it really is. It's not so much an appeal as it is an opportunity. An opportunity for us to be a part of something far bigger than we are, far bigger than this church is. An opportunity for us to join with many other people in showing those who are often the least and the last and the forgotten that they are seen and that they are loved. And I'm going to go as far as saying, I actually think Operation Christmas Child and the Shoebox Appeal helps us grasp something of the Christmas message that we're quite quick to put down. Now, I am well aware there is a section in Tesco's already with Christmas chocolates and mince pies on the shelves. And it can be a little bit over-commercialized when we look at Christmas. But I think it's really important that we see in the text that when we dismiss something of the way that the world has embraced Christmas, we dismiss something of the Christmas story. Because actually, I think we see gifts as a key element all the way through the Christmas story. And if we are throwing that out, we are losing the heart of something that runs through the whole of the story. So this morning, we're just going to take a little wander. If you have a Bible with you, just hook yourself up in Luke. We're going to use the Gospels a little bit, but predominantly we're going to be in Luke this morning. The readings aren't going to be on the screen because we're going through a couple of them, but I will read them. But we're going to start in Luke 1. And we're just going to take a journey looking at the times in which giving and gifts appear. And how it's really important that we don't just assume that these gifts are a negative and we push them to the side. So we're going to start with the gift of good news as we read in Luke 1:26 to 33. In the 6th month after Elizabeth had become pregnant, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee. He was sent to a virgin. The girl was engaged to a man named Joseph. He came from the family line of David. The virgin's name was Mary. The angel greeted her and said, "The Lord has blessed you in a special way. He is with you." Mary was very upset because of his words. She wondered what kind of greeting this could be. But the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary. God is very pleased with you. You will become pregnant and give birth to a son. You must call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High God. The Lord God will make him a king like his father David of long ago. The Son of the Most High God will rule forever over his people. They are from the family line of Jacob. That kingdom will never end." I wonder when the last time you considered good news to be a gift. When did you last consider telling someone some good news could be a gift to them? The reason I think that's a valid point is just consider how frequently you would review a place when it met your expectations versus how frequently you are willing to go on TripAdvisor and criticize it when it hasn't. We are a society that tends to lean towards the negative, and yet we see here in this opening part of the story that there is good news shared. The angel comes and speaks to Mary and brings good news. And it's a very interesting play on the idea of good news because it is surely the good news that we're hearing. I wonder when the last time you shared the good news of the gospel with someone. When was the last time you shared something of what God had done in your life with others? It's an incredible challenge to us to consider that the Christmas story opens with this gift of good news being shared. Sometimes, I think, if we're honest, we hide behind the gift-giving of Christmas. It enables us to spend time with family without necessarily talking about the fact that we spent the morning in church. This whole story begins with the gift of good news being given to Mary. I find it fascinating that the words of the angel troubled Mary. I think that speaks volumes again of society that we live in, that often news is greeted with skepticism, with fear, with worry as to what the implications are. Could we turn the tide on that mentality by sharing good news with people? And maybe as we move into this Christmas season, sharing the good news of Jesus with those in our lives. We start with this good news and then we move on to one of my favorite parts, and this is the gift of community. The gift of community. Listen as I just continue this story for us. At that time, Mary got ready and hurried to a town in the hill country of Judea, where she entered Zachariah's home and greeted Elizabeth. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the baby leapt in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. In a loud voice she exclaimed, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the child you will bear. But why am I so favored that the mother of the Lord should come to me? As soon as the sound of your greeting reached my ears, the baby in my womb leapt for joy. Blessed is she who has believed that the Lord would fulfill his promise to her." Mary moves into this gift that can't so much be given as much as it is created. Her first response when she receives this news is to go and be amongst a safe place, to go and be amongst someone who would do life with her, someone who would journey with her. Her natural inclination is to be in community. We aren't called to do our faith as little islands bobbing along as individuals. We are called to be community, to be part of something bigger, to know there is a safe space that we can come and we can share our burdens and we can share our joys and our good news in. Likewise, we are called to be a place where others feel they can come. Those of you who have been here for a while will know that I am not a fan of the answer "fine" when someone asks how you are. Because I am an emotional roller coaster at the best of times. Put a Christmas advert on, I'm a wreck. But when we are genuine community, fine doesn't need to come into it because we can be honest with how we are. Mary's initial response to hearing this news is to go and be in community. I wonder if I were to ask you, where is your community? Where is your safe place? And who are you being community for? Where are you making yourself available for others to feel like they can be a part of something? We see in this moment an early picture of what I believe the church should be. A safe place, a place that people come to share, a place that people come when news is overwhelming, to celebrate and to mourn as one. We aren't called to struggle on alone. We aren't called to bottle things up inside, but we are called to be part of community, and we see how naturally Mary's inclination is to go. She knew she'd be welcomed. And then we move from the good news that Mary receives to this idea of community where she feels safe. And as we play the story forward a little bit, we move into the gift of hospitality, often kept in a similar mentality as that of community, but crucially different. You'll know this story well. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born. She gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloth and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. As I said, community and hospitality are often seen to go hand in hand, but there are some very key differences. Community is rooted in either living in the same space or having a common attitude and interest, which results in time spent together. That's what community is. That's what we're called to create in our communities and amongst our fellowship. Hospitality, on the other hand, is the act of being friendly and welcoming to a guest or a visitor. Being welcoming and friendly to a guest or a visitor. Community is about creating something deeper with those around you. Hospitality is about making a safe space for those who maybe we don't even know to be present. And then in this story, and I love this, we see one of the most important elements of hospitality, and that is inconvenient hospitality. It's really easy when you know someone's coming to clean the house and to put all the rubbish away and get the best china out. But inconvenient hospitality is what we see in this story, which is the place is rammed, full to the rafters with people coming back to register. And yet there is someone who has decided that they can make a little bit of extra space. Someone who is willing to be inconvenienced to be hospitable. I wonder how many of us, if we were honest, would be willing to be hospitable. But I wonder how many of us would be willing to be inconvenienced to be hospitable. The innkeeper takes a horrific rap in the Christmas story. And yet have we considered the willingness to find space that wasn't really there? To go out of their way to create a safe space. Had it not been for the innkeeper, the story of the first Christmas would have been Jesus born under a backdrop of the stars. So for all of the problems of the place being full and the infrastructure being pushed to its limits, we see the wonder and the beauty of hospitality that is inconvenient. It worries me and it saddens me that hospitality has become about us presenting the very best of who we are to those who come to our house. Somehow we've made hospitality more about how I look as we play it out than how welcome the person feels as they come in. Inconvenient hospitality doesn't allow for that. Inconvenient hospitality asks us to go above and beyond, to put ourselves out, to make someone else feel welcomed and loved and safe. Are we a people that are willing to make a space because someone needs it? The gift of hospitality is crucial. It's crucial to us as a fellowship, to us as individuals. And we see here it's crucial to this part of the story. And then the gift of giving. I'm going to read this first. We turn to Matthew 2 for this. After they heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. And they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. I mean, I am a sucker for a Christmas present. I love a Christmas present. I like chocolate orange. I'm never opposed to socks, and I have a whole Christmas list if anyone wants to have a copy of it. But we were always told, and we're always brought up in church, that we need to not lose the heart of Christmas. And this idea of gifts can be a little bit of a distraction from what's going on. And yet we have here an amazing account of gifts being given. Now, I'm fairly sure they weren't gift wrapped. There definitely wasn't going to be half a wrapping of sellotape to hold the whole thing together. But gifts were given. We have to accept that. It's a clear part of the story, but we can learn something from the gifts that were given. And as we begin to consider how we prepare ourselves for Christmas and how much we share the good news and how hospitable we are and what we act like as a community, we now have this idea of giving. I am fairly sure, my history's not great, but I'm not convinced it was easy to pick up gold, frankincense, and myrrh from a petrol station en route. These were gifts that were considered. These were gifts that were prepared and brought in advance. They had thought put into them. They are ridiculous gifts for a baby. Please hear that. They are ridiculous gifts for a baby, but they are perfect gifts for a king. There is so much thought put into the gifts that are given by the kings at this part of the story that we can learn something about the value of a gift. Not just a gift because we felt like we needed to bring some flowers that we did pick up from the petrol station, but the gift that's been thought about. The gift that shows that we know the individual that we're giving it to. It saddens me, don't get me wrong. It is a real blessing that you can buy gift cards, but it saddens me how often we resort to gift cards because we just don't know what they'd like anymore. We've grown apart. It's a sad reflection of the relationship state, not on the gift that we're giving. The 3 gifts that were given to Jesus were given because of who he was, because these guys understood who he was. I wonder how many of us will give gifts this Christmas season that are intentional, that are given because we know the individual we are giving them to, because actually the value of them and the quality of them will be second to the heart that they were given with. I have a ridiculously large amount of yellow tat in my house because Evie knows my favorite color is yellow, which means if she goes somewhere and there is something yellow and tatty, I will inevitably give it as a gift. Do I care? Not really, because she's thinking about me when I'm not there. And she knows something I like, and she'll pester Laura to pay for it, so it's all the better. But it's the heart in which we give, and we see in this moment the value of thought-through gifts. Gifts that mean more than maybe we realize in the moment. Think for a moment how much you value those gifts that speak louder than what they are, but speak to the heart of the person giving them and their attitude towards you, the way they view you, how well they know you. The giving of gifts can be such a powerful message. But they create a problem for us because sometimes we don't have the resources to give gifts or to give the gifts that we want to give. And the Christmas story has that covered as well. The gift of being. Now, a quick footnote. I'm so sorry when we break down the Christmas story properly that we ruin many of our children's based nativities. But there is no account biblically of dear Jesus getting given a live sheep by the shepherds. It's something we like to do for the children, to carry a sheep when they arrive at the stable, but there is no account of the shepherds doing that. Instead, we see this in Luke 2. So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby who was lying in the manger. When they had seen him, they spread the word concerning what had been told to them about this child. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds said to them. But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her hearts. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they had heard and seen, which were just as they were told. As I said, we often like to make it out that the shepherds bought a little lamb for baby Jesus to play with, which, when we think about it, is a really irrational thing to do. But they didn't. They just came. They were present. They just wanted to be present where Jesus was. They wanted to see if the things they had heard were true. And again, hear those words. Mary treasured up that encounter in her heart. They brought nothing to the table, and yet it meant so much to Mary. How many of us take the time to be present? Many of you have heard me share before, I am really not a fan of talking on the phone. I am that generation that grew up knowing that it was far easier just to send a text message. I'm not a fan of the phone. It scares me somewhat. And I look at a younger generation and they don't text each other. They just voice note. And then they send it's like a walkie-talkie. But it fascinates me because actually what that's done is we feel like we are present without being present. I feel like I've spoken to people without really speaking to them. I feel like I've ticked it off without really achieving or doing anything. And yet we see here the value of the gift of being who we are and being present with those people. I guarantee you this, the people closest to you, the people who love you and value you are not waiting for you to bring them a present this Christmas. They're waiting for you to be with them. The presents are lovely, we love opening them, but the gift of being present is so valuable and one that we're losing in our communities and our society. I love the fact that every year we will host certain Christmas events in this chapel. We are present in this community. We are consistent in this community. I wonder who there is in your life where you can be present by being amongst others. It's an amazing gift, something that I really encourage you not to lose. The Christmas story is full of this idea of gift giving, be that practical gifts, be that verbal gifts, be that the gift of our own presence. By the time we get to Christmas, we don't really like to talk about this whole gift idea. We're into a lot of the models that we use for Christmas, but I felt it was really important for us to kick off today and tie in with the shoeboxes this idea of gifts. The idea of gifts. And let's be completely honest, the whole Christmas story revolves around the fact that Jesus came. The very heart of the Christmas story is the gift of Jesus. We read these amazing words across the start of John's Gospel. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him, all things were made. Without him, nothing that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. This whole thing, the whole of the Christmas story, begins with this gift of Jesus. We understand the concept of rewards. Rewards are to mark something that's been earned. A gift is freely given. Ultimately, a gift is given with the awareness that it can be accepted or rejected. And we see in Jesus this gift given by God to humanity, to be accepted or rejected. We didn't earn the gift of Jesus. Please hear that. In the same way, we've not earned salvation or grace or mercy. Instead, we understand that it was freely given for each of us to choose to accept or reject. The root of the gospel, the root of the Christmas story is this intentional gift given. And I think we see something that links in really importantly for me with these shoeboxes. I asked Gina a very deliberate question. You may have picked up on it. Are these the shoeboxes that go to the children? Are these the actual ones that the children will receive? The idea that my fingerprint is on a box that will travel to parts of the world that I've never heard of, I definitely won't be able to spell and will probably never visit. And yet my fingerprint is on that box as that child opens it and receives the gifts that have been thought about and prayed over and intentionally given. I find it humbling to consider that. And in Jesus, we see that wonderful truth as well. That the world would be touched with the very hands of God through Jesus. I find it incredibly overwhelming to consider that God would care enough about me and about you that the only way to bring relationship back was for Jesus to touch earth practically and physically. An incredibly powerful truth for us to hold on to as we move into the Christmas story. As we move into the season of Christmas, is to remember that God in Jesus came down and touched a hurting people and a broken people. And through the cross brought about an incredible work that spoke of love and salvation and grace and mercy. for all the complaints that we can have about the lost heart of Christmas and the over-commercialization of it and all the other things that we have beef with. I wonder if maybe we could agree that actually at the very heart of Christmas is a collection of gifts. At the very core of Christmas is a collection of gifts. And maybe the challenge isn't that we're losing the heart of Christmas. Maybe the real challenge for us is that we've lost that gift-giving mentality for the rest of the year. Why are we saving Jesus for Christmas? Why are we saving the concept of being community and being hospitable and sharing the good news and giving gifts and being present in the lives of those around us for Christmas? I don't think the challenge is protecting Christmas from gifts. I think it's us learning to be that gift to our community and our family all year round. Inspired by that gift that God gives of his Son.